Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Hello and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Speak Life podcast. We are so excited to have you with us for another wonderful week. I am your host, Minister Phoenix, alongside my beautiful wife and amazing co-host.
Hey everybody, welcome again to the Speak Life podcast. This is your co-host, the one and only Shika. We are so glad you're here with us today.
So glad. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We love when you just come and just rock with us week after week. If you are one of those faithful listeners who tune in week after week, we appreciate y'all. You are the ones who keep pushing us in this and keep us going to keep doing this. So we appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you. We love y'all.
We appreciate
y'all.
All right, let's get in it.
All right. Now today we are going to dig deep. I'm not going to lie. This for me is one of those topics where you have to really dig deep, peel back the layers and really get real. And I know, I always say we're real every week. You say it all the time. We try to keep it authentic. We try to keep it, just real. We don't want the fake. But this week we're going to be real about something that people don't normally talk about. And if I could put a title to this topic that we're going to talk about this week, it would be Why Jesus?
Why Jesus?
Not why Jesus, but why Jesus? Yeah. So people might be deceived when they see the topic, like, what? Why Jesus? But not why Jesus, why? But more like a why Jesus?
Like a question.
Yeah, like, Now, I think, with this, it's like we can talk to anyone about, what they believe. And people will be quick to tell you, like, I'm a Christian or, a Muslim or a Buddhist or, but they never really go into the why. Mm-hmm. And I think the why is just as important as the what. Because when you understand why someone believes something, you understand their experience, and you get to get a picture of their truth. It brings a different aspect to just knowing what someone believes. But I think the why is really important. So I think that was really the piece that really pushed us into really jumping into this episode. So to start off the conversation, I would pose this question, and it's an interesting question because I don't think we think about it a lot. Is like, when did you start believing in God?
So, when did I start believing in God? I mean, I've always known that there's a God because growing up, I would see my grandmother go to church. She would pray, and every so often, like, Easter and New Year's Sunday, like, everyone would be in church. So I know that there was a God, or there is a God. But when I personally, like, started saying, like, well, I really do believe in God, it would have to be, and I talk about this particular thing in the book as well. When I was going through some hard times as a teen, living in Jamaica, and I remember just sitting on my bed, and I was praying, and I was saying, God, if you take me away from this place, I didn't think I said if, but I said that, just take me away from this place, something like that. And then, like, a couple weeks later, I was here in America, like, to visit. And then after that, it was like, oh, I'm staying for good.
So you ain't going.
And I was like,
nowhere.
Wow. So I think for me, that was like, because the little bit I know how to pray, that wasn't really for me, that wasn't even a prayer. It was just more so me just talking like, God, just take me away from here. I wish you would just take me away from here. And I was here. I was in America. So at that moment when I came here and looking back, I'm always like, wow, there has to be a God. Like, look how this just happened. So I think that was like the first real like moment for me when I'm like, wow, like it just blew my mind. And then things just started getting so much better for me from there on.
Now, for me, I think this is a harder question because when I was thinking about this, it was more of a, for me, trying to think of like the point in my life where I honestly really knew that, you know, there was this supreme being known as God who is there. Because I look back on my life and, you know, even though like me and my siblings, we went to Catholic school. So somehow my parents, you know, had the opportunity to send us to Catholic school. So we would always hear, you know, it was different for Catholic school. They made you go to mass. They made you pray, you know, and they made you do all these things, you know, related to the Catholic religion. Like we would do, like, have to say the rosary every February and every May, like literally every day, 5 days a week. When we went to school, they would, every first Friday of the month, they would make us, we'd get out early, we'd get a half a day, but they make us go to church, like Catholic church, you know. But even in the midst, I think of like all these things, but it was like even before, you know, going to Catholic school, for some reason, I'd always had this concept of there being this higher being, this higher power, even when, you know, I didn't really understand, you know, what to call it, you know. And then, you know, I can't think of a honest solidifying point where I was like, you know what, this is God, or there is, or more, there is a God than rather, you know, this is God, you know. And I think for me, it's like, I'd always believed that I don't know why, but I'd always believed there was, you know, there had to be something bigger than us.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and it's like just not really understanding, you know, what it was or how to even address it. You know, I'd had many different thoughts of, you know, what it could possibly be. I'd see like the guys from the Nation of Islam, you know, selling the papers and everything. And I never really understood, you know, what they were doing. I see how, you know, my brother, you know, went through his transition of faith. And, you know, there was a time where he was Muslim for a while. And, you know, even just, you know, coming up and seeing like my grandmother go to church and things like that, you know, it was like I could never, you know, I always had, because of like the things that were going on around me, you know, I'd always known there was a God. I just didn't know who was God.
Okay.
You know, and I've always tried to think about that piece. Like, when did I really understand the whole notion and concept, you know, of God? And I think when it had to be when one of my family members died, I just didn't understand it. And I think that's when, like, I started really, you know, grasping the concept of even afterlife and what comes after this and, you know, what we do after that. And that really brings me to this second question, where it was like, you know, what was that point where you realized, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that God was real?
When did I really realize? You know what? I'm trying to think back as far as I can, but
It's really a hard question to think about.
I mean, I remember being at a, because we both said before, like we know that there's a God.
Oh,
We
yeah.
know. But like for me, when I was at a church service, I think I was like 16 or 17 years old, and I was at a church service. It was like a youth conference or something like that. And I remember just watching all the young people or the teenagers, you know, like really praising God, and they like, I couldn't really understand it, because coming here, I think I was about 16 years old, yeah. So coming here is like, I wasn't a Christian, so going to a church service and experiencing, just seeing all these, you know, people that's my age, like worshiping and crying and like praying, it was something that I've never experienced, and I didn't understand it, and I was like, in my eyes, it looked very awkward, and I was just like, wow, are they okay? Like, you know, and I would be just watching, but then, and I think this was like a maybe a couple of days long conference, and I remember going back home, and I'm like just replaying everything, and I'm sitting here like, man, I want to feel what they're feeling. And then I would go back, and then I'm like, at this time, I'm not like really just watching and looking and just trying to figure out what's wrong with them. I like, now I'm like really focusing on like thinking about God and like,
oh, so you went
praying.
from being a spectator to a participator.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, like praying and trying to pray. A little bit I know how to pray. Trying to pray and just really saying, God, I want to feel what they're feeling. And that was really my prayer. And then I just felt like a weird feeling came over me. And when I said a weird feeling, like it's something that it make you feel like you want to cry. A feeling that just make you feel like I can't even explain it. It's not a bad feeling. It's just a feeling where you're like, wow, I feel like something is changing inside of me. But you just can't, like, I couldn't understand, but I just know that something was shifting. And I'm like, okay. And I would open my eyes and I look and I still see, you know, people worshiping, crying, and I just felt the tear. I don't know if I was crying because they were crying, but
so you just started crying.
I started crying.
I don't know why I was crying, but I was crying.
And then that feeling, that same feeling, like something is just, my heart, like something is just changing. And I raised my hand and I closed my eyes and I just start saying, I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus.
I love you,
You know?
Jesus.
So with that, I went home and I felt great. I was like, oh, I want to go again. And then I went the next night, and then things were a little bit more easier for me to worship. It wasn't so hard, and I worship, and then I just felt like something again happened inside of me. And from that point, I was like, Lord, I want to follow you. Like, I want to serve you. I remember because that was the last night, and I remember they asked if there's any unsaved, and I remember went up and they prayed with me, and that was the moment when I said, yeah, there's definitely a God, because what I'm feeling, it feels great, and I want to continue this walk.
So you're up there like, something happened and now I know
He touched me.
He touched me.
Yes.
Hey, baby.
Me
So you
yeah.
gotta touch. You gotta
Touch me.
touch. So that's how you knew. That's how you knew without a shadow of a doubt
Yeah.
that God was real. Now for me, it was just so much like that goes along with this, because like I said, you know, I was in Catholic school for 5 years. So you see like these nuns and you see people praying in Catholic church. It's a little different from Pentecostal church. So I can't even say it's a lot different from Pentecostal church. So I would see these people praying and I'm like, you know, who are these people praying? Are they praying? They just kind of sitting there silent because they don't really pray like out loud like that, you know, unless they're saying like corporate prayers. And I think that was the first exposure that I ever got to see people praying. But even with that, I did not have that faith in, who they would have said God was. And even in the times that I would go to church with my grandmother and I would see how they would do church, it's like, I'm like, all right, okay, yeah, there's a God, I understand that, but it's like, I feel like it was like through that time when everything started being like crazy, it's like I started like trying to find out more, and I would like go to church with her. And I remember talking to my mother one time, I was like, I want to go to church, because from my understanding, it was as if, you go to church to find God. So she was like, you can go with your grandmother. She always going. So one day, I remember I called my grandmother. I was like, Grandma, you going to church? I want to go to church with you. She's like, yeah, just come down. At that time, we were living up the street from her. So there was a few times I would go to church with her, and I'm like, I don't get it. I'm there, but I'm like, I'm just.
As kids, it's like, it's confusing.
I was probably like 11, 12 years old. And I was just
especially
like,
if you're not used to it. It's kind of like, oh,
what
what's
is
going
this?
on?
I'm like, I was like falling asleep the whole night.
I remember when I used to, I remember like, because even in Jamaica, like my mom at the time, she was a Christian, and I think I was like maybe 14 at that time, or 13, maybe 13. And I remember going to the church where she go, like they would have like night service and we would go. But I wasn't going because I want to go to church. I would go, but I'm outside. Of course, Jamaica is hot, so we're outside. We could look into the church, and we're literally just out there. I would go to see my friends, and or this guy I was dating, I would go to see him. Like, let's meet at church.
Hey,
but I'm outside.
God will take care of you, even if you're outside the church.
But we're outside looking in. And I remember you would see them jumping around and in the spirit. And we used to laugh at people, doing that. So it's like you never understood, like, what's happening. So when you come and you finally, like, get an experience of what it is to be filled or to get into the spirit, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I used to laugh at people that used to get into the spirit.
Listen. Listen.
So now it's like, you're like, oh, Lord, forgive me.
I
know not what I was doing.
I used to make fun of people who went to church. I can't even lie. Like, I used to have, like, God rest his soul, my friend Walter. That was like the first time I'd walked into a church, because I don't even understand. It's like he used to like work at, like, do stuff at the church. Mm-hmm. And I used to, that was my man's. He's like, we used to go everywhere together, before he passed. And he was like, his family was deep in the church. They would go to church like every Sunday. Mm. And I could never understand it, because my family, we never went to church. And then as I got older and I started seeing, more of my friends pass on, it's like, and then everything that was going on at home, it's like, I could never understand how people could put their faith in something that they couldn't see, because everything I seen was like not like it wasn't something good, so I couldn't understand. I'm like,
but I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of people. Like, how can you put your faith in something that,
especially if your life isn't going well and the things around you, the environment that you're in is not going well. So that was a struggle for me. But I think for me, the time that I can say that I really understood that God was real was at the end of my case, because so that
was the end of senior year.
Yeah, that was the end of senior year, where I truly understood and believed, like, without a shadow of a doubt, there's nothing that anyone can tell me that can prove to me that God isn't real. Because I remember, and I always saw anyone who ever asked me, I will tell them the same story over and over again. You read the book, you'll hear about it. November 6th, 2002.
I remember that day.
What I read, yeah, I bet you do. Not the best day of my life. Definitely, probably what I would have considered the worst day of my life.
But you know what, though? I don't want to cut you. Keep what you're saying. Remember what you're gonna say. But you know what? This is how important it is to speak life. Because the words that came out of my mouth that same day
got me where I did not want to be.
Well, I don't know if it's the words. I don't know if but I said, because this is what I said. If you read the book, you'll see it. But this is what I said. I was like, you guys need to stop, because one is going to get killed and the other one is going to be in jail. And those was the last words I said to you before you got arrested.
Before I got arrested. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So it's crazy how that there's like, and of course I didn't really know what I like as far as like, I feel like I was trying to encourage you. I didn't know that there was, and honestly though, but you look at it, all things works together for the good of the Lord. Because if that had not happened,
who knows?
Who knows what would have happened?
I'll probably more likely be dead than in jail. Peace.
You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes God allows us to say things, and then He's like, He said it, and I'm gonna let something happen. I'm gonna stir it up, and it's also for your benefit. Because if that never happened, I don't know if we would sit right here right now.
Probably not.
I don't know if we would have 3 kids. I don't know if we would have been married. Probably, you know what I mean? So in all things, you have to give God thanks.
Yeah. So like I was saying, and that, no, it's okay. It's okay. Because even in the course of that, with everything and how it was looking, like, I'm like, God. I remember just sitting there like, God, if I go down for this, I'm only going to get worse. I was like, but if you get me out of this, because I'd heard people talk about praying and stuff before. I wasn't one of those people that really prayed like that. But I was like, God, if I go down for this, I'm only going to get worse. But if you get me out of this, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And from that point,
things just start changing.
Like I had seen.
Wow.
No one else can say anything. They could say coincidence. They could say, sometimes things just happen the way that they happen. But with how things happen, in the manner that things happen, there is no doubt in my mind that it had to be God.
It had to be God. No, it had to.
It had to be God.
It is God. Yep.
They knocked down my bill from $50,000 to $1,000. My case got dismissed when it wasn't even supposed to get. There's no reason that it should have gotten dismissed. I got off on a technicality, and it's like just the course of how things played out from November 6th until June 24th, 2003. It's like I just seen how God changed around my life. Yeah. And just seeing how even in still being in situations and still being in, an environment that wasn't really very helpful, he still was able to still work things in a way that I'd be able to make it, and I think for me, that was the time where it was like, there's nothing anyone else can say to me to prove that there wasn't otherwise God. That this God really does exist.
Yeah. And it's important because for people to know, like, you wasn't a Christian.
No.
You didn't.
I was a heathen.
but
what
I'm saying is that I think that people think, people consider themselves different ways, like, I'm bad, or God is not gonna want to even hear me or hear a prayer from me or whatever because I'm so bad and I'm such a evil person, or whatever people may call themselves because of the things that they have done and the decisions that they have made. But it's important for people to realize that it doesn't matter how bad you may think you are or how bad other people may look at you and be like you are. God doesn't see you that way. So if you're going through, whether or not you're a Christian, like if you're not a Christian, like God still see you as someone He creates. Like He's not gonna be like, if you're gonna pray to me and I see you need help. Like God is gonna try to help you. He may put you in some situation where
He'll put you in some situations,
some uncomfortable places that's gonna get you to like lean and depend upon Him, and that in turn you are going to come to know Him, as who He is, to be served, to be glorified. But So sometimes, like, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're a bad person, you can still pray to God. And he will help you out of whatever situation you're in.
And that's the thing. I think as people, we sometimes disqualify ourselves because we think that God looks at us the way that we look at ourselves. And the extent to which God loves us, the extent to which he loves us can't even compare to anything that we could even imagine. And that's really how I've come to understand God. It's like we will put ourselves in some of the worst situations and classify ourselves as like the worst people, unlovable. How could anyone ever love me? But God, like the love that God has for us is literally unimaginable. Where we could do the worst thing in the world to people and he will still love us. He still wants us to change and to draw close to him. And
John 3:16.
And we disqualify ourselves time and time again.
Yeah.
I could go on with that for a while. Yeah. So I'm not going to. I'm going to push on. And this next question is a good one because when we come on here, we say all the time, we gonna tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We gotta be real.
We always do.
Because that is the nature of what this is. This is authentic conversations that usually revolve around faith or something close to it to try to encourage people, And
that's
I think,
the whole point.
Sometimes as Christians we can be fake at times. So this question right here is for the real. Since you have been following God, have there been times when you have doubted or when you have questioned what God is doing? Of
course. Like, all the time.
Because you be having people like, no, I always have faith. I always believe that God is going to bring me through.
Well, I'm sorry.
My faith never stumbles or stammers. I'm just like, without faith, it is impossible to please God.
Well, honestly, I've had plenty of situations where I'm like questioning God, like, okay, God, I don't know what you're doing. Are you here? Are you seeing me? Are you seeing what's going on? Like, do you see? Like, where are you, Lord? Because I don't feel like you're here with me right now. And I just came out of one of those moments. I just did. When I'm like, and I mean, I like the fact that for me, I could be honest with myself. And
you gotta be honest with yourself.
I have no issues with being honest with myself. So there's times when I have to say, God, like, I don't feel you right now. I don't know if you're here with me right now. I don't know what you're doing, but don't forget about me. Like, I am your child.
Pass me not,
don't forget about me. So like with stuff like that, I always there's like, it's like God know the right moments to like send a confirmation or send someone to say something to me or call me or something, but send a message. Or it could be like in me listening to music, me watching like a sermon, like something. There's always a confirmation that God is telling me, I'm still with you. But doesn't mean that I don't question and wonder. Like, especially when stuff is happening, I'm looking around, and when you look around, you're like, okay, it doesn't look like anybody else is going through what I'm going through. So is it me, Lord? Like, what am I doing? What am I not doing?
Because it can feel like that.
But there's always a confirmation or something that God would send, a message, something to tell me that he is with me. He is hearing me. And when that happened, my faith kind of get a little stronger. And then, because sometimes, you get distracted.
It's easy to get distracted.
And I know when I'm distracted, it's like the devil is like, yes, I get her now. Yes, I can do whatever I want with her. But then it's in that moment, it's in those moments when I start feeling like I'm alone and like God is not with me. And when God give me some kind of confirmation, then it gets my faith back kicking. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, she could dust yourself off. Get up. Stop with the pity party. Get yourself together. Start doing what you know you do best, like seeking God, pray, asking him for the wisdom and the just understanding and the knowledge, so he could show you, for the guidance, so he could show you, so he could help you. And in those times is when I find more and more strength to keep going and to not doubt. And it's funny because it was today, I was sitting there and a thought came in my head. And I'm like, God, I don't even know. Like, are you even here? Like something, and I was about to kind of get deeper in the thought, and
you was about to go into the rabbit hole.
Yes, and I literally, like, something just kind of snapped, and I was like, nope. I was like, devil, you're a liar. I rebuke you. And I literally had to do that and said, look at what God has just done for me. Look at what God has brought me from. Look at this situation that I just got out of. And it wasn't because of me. It was because of God. Look at where God is taking you. Look at what God is going to do for you come next month. Look at, and it's like I just literally start thinking like that and saying, what? You must be crazy, devil. You are not going to get my mind there. So sometimes we have to remember and realize, but sometimes it's a distraction and we don't realize in time, and God have to kind of shake us up a little bit.
Kind of bring us back.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I first started out on this walk, I had a lot of questions,
yeah,
and I would say
he was confused,
and I would say there was a lot of things that I doubted. I was more
like, babe, I don't know, but just do it.
I was more like, doubting Tom. I'm not gonna call him Doubting Thomas. I'm gonna call him Concrete Evidence Thomas, because he wanted to see the holes in his hands and in his feet. He's like, nah. He's like, and they call him doubter. It's not that he doubted. He just wanted to see. He's like, nah, I need to see. Concrete Evidence Thomas. That was me for a while. And I feel like, through the course that, God has taken me on this walk, through the winding roads and the many, different journeys and battles that we've gone through, I think I've passed on to the point where I don't doubt that he's going to do things. I do question. Now I'm in questioning Kenny phase, where I'm questioning. I'm like, God, what are you doing? Or I'm questioning, God, when is this going to happen? But I feel like I'm at the point where I don't doubt his ability to do things in my life. I question, the when sometimes. I don't even worry about the hows, because the hows just blow my mind these days. It's like God just be flipping things when he want to flip things, and he don't be asking anyone for any permission. He's like, oh, your credit's messed up. Boom, look at that. Adam just gave you steps to fix your credit, and you're like, what? How did you? But that doesn't even make sense. God just, like, when it says he can do exceedingly abundantly above anything that you can ask or think. Like, God can flip over some situations and cause one conversation to change your whole life. And you're just sitting there like, but God, how? How? But that's just
how belongs.
That's just
to
how
him.
he rolls. So I don't even question the how anymore. I think most of my questioning comes to the God when. What are you doing and when? I think that's where I am now, where it's like when I'm going through certain things, I have this weird faith where I'm like, because I know I've said this on many episodes before this, and anytime you ask me about it, I will say it again. Because I understand the character of who God is, I don't question if he's going to do it. Well, sometimes I question if he's going to do it, but I'll tell you why about that in a second. I don't question if he can do it. I question, if and when. Because there's a lot of times where, I will pray for something and I always try to pray, God, if it's in your will, let it be done. Mm-hmm. Because there's sometimes God will not answer some prayers to bring us to some places or to teach us some things that require us to trust him regardless of if he answers or not. And a lot of times you would see people who will be on this road and they'll trust God and be like, I trust him because, of the things he's done and because I believe he's going to do it, and sometimes God wants you to trust him even when he doesn't do it.
Yeah, because of who he is.
Yeah, he's like, listen. He's like, if you really understand who I am, then whether I do it or not, you're gonna
trust me.
Because you understand who I am.
And that's like, and honestly, I feel like, at least for me in my experience, when God, most of my prayers that God answered, it's like my prayers like this, like, Lord, or things that I'm asking God for. I'm like, God, if you give it to me, I will still trust you. I will still love you. And if you don't give it to me,
even if you don't,
you are still God. I will still trust you and I will still love you. So whichever way, Lord,
either way it
goes, you are still my God. You are still my Lord.
And I think that's important because I think that sometimes people feel like if God doesn't answer how they want him to answer, that he somehow has failed. And that's not the case, because it's not every prayer that he's going to answer. Even in the times where it seems like it's something that you may have needed and it's absolutely dire, or it seems like it's of the utmost importance and he doesn't answer. It's like, that can really cause people to wonder, like, well, God, what are you doing?
Yeah, but God is saying it's not the right time.
Sometimes God is saying no.
Like, no, that's not, because you know what? He sees the future. He see ahead.
And that's the thing.
So it's like, he's like, you want this now, but you don't see what I'm trying to prevent you from.
Yeah, or it'll be like, you want this now, but I'm not going to give it to you. It's going to feel like I'm breaking you. But when you look down the road, you're going to be so much stronger because of what I told you no in right now.
Oh,
it's not a no that I don't love you, but it's a no because it's like, I know how much stronger you will be if I don't give this to you then than you are right now. If I give it to you now, you'll be like, all right, yes.
You can't handle it. You're not prepared.
Sometimes it don't even be like you're not prepared. But it's like, I'm putting you through the ringer. I'm training you. I'm showing you what you're going to be able to make it through. Because when you get down there, you're going to be so much more prepared for where I'm trying to take you if I don't give this to you now.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, what it reminds me of? It's kind of like when your child wants something, right? And you've already given them so much, but they still want something. You tell them no. So then it's like they learn to appreciate the things that they get because you're telling them no for these things now. So then later on, when they actually get something like a gift, they appreciate the gift more than they would have if you would have just given it to them.
Yeah.
Or if they would have had to earn it. So I look at it as something like that. It's not the same. It's not the same, situation, but in the sense, it's kind of the same where it's like, he doesn't give it to us now because he's trying to prepare us for what's coming later.
And that doesn't mean that, in some sense, it doesn't mean that he's not going to give it to us. It's just that he's like,
timing.
Not right now.
Timing
now
is
it's
everything.
Not the right time. And then you may look and you may be like, oh my gosh, Lord, I want this. And you be crying and, having a tantrum. But God is like, no, I said no. Now it's not the right time. But then, say a year from now, when he give it to you, you're like, you appreciate it more because you're like, oh my gosh, if I had gotten this that time, I wouldn't be able to manage. I wouldn't be able to help out the situation. But right now, I'm in a better place. I'm in a better space. Wow, this is the best time. But then you thought last year was the right time, and God is like, no. And now you look and you're like, wow. Thank you, Lord. Because if you had given it to me then, come this year, I may not have had it. So, yeah, it's all about like knowing who God is,
Mm-hmm.
and know, like you said, knowing his character, knowing what he'll do from what he won't do, and just believe and just trust him. But sometimes it's easier said than done. I know for me, there's times, I go through my phases where I'm like, one minute I'm like, yes, I trust God and I know God is going to do it. And another moment it's like, Lord, I don't know. My faith is not where I want it to be right now, God. And I thank God for you, because when I get like that and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? My faith is like, Lord, I have a mustard seed faith right now. Like, and for you, like, I'll find strength through you, because you're like, babe, God is going to work it out. He's going to work it out. It is going to work. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, you know what? Because of your faith, I'm able to find a little bit more faith and, and feel like, okay, Lord, let me not look at the things that I can see, but let me look at the things that I just can't see yet, but I just know it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You
got to. That's when they be talking about iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you really do need someone to just like lean on, like to just be like, yo,
yeah,
my faith is little right now. I'm gonna need to lean on your faith in this time.
Yeah.
Now here's the moment of truth.
Mm-hmm.
This is the question that the whole episode revolves around. This question right here. So why Jesus? Why Jesus? Why not? Allah? Why not, Buddha? Why not, anyone else? Why did you make the choice to follow Jesus?
I mean, again, I was raised to follow God. Growing up, that's what I see my, everyone that I know do. And as I, come to become an adult and my own, be able to think on my own, I've seen where God, the God Jehovah Jireh, the God that I trust, the I Am, I've seen where in like so many situations where he has helped me. And just the Bible alone, me following the Bible, if I follow the Bible step by step by step, I won't go wrong. My life will not go wrong, because everything that's in the Bible, it tells you. And so with me just knowing that, and the feeling that I get, like when I pray and when I get into that realm in the spirit, it's a feeling like you can't explain. Like, it's just a feeling that your heart is filled. You're doing that. You know that there is a higher power that creates you, that know you, that when you pray, that when you seek him, like it's like something happened inside of you. I've never served any other God, so I don't know what happened when you pray to any other God. I just know about the God that I serve and the God that I pray to, and that he's the only God I'm going to pray to and serve. So therefore, I will never know about any other God. So I'm quite okay and happy and blessed with the God that I serve. So
now this was a loaded question. I didn't even put this in there, but I'm like, this is our episode question. So, I had to ask, why Jesus?
And I know that he died for me. Like, I know that God gave his son, Jesus Christ, for me. So for all of this, everything come bad, good, ugly, everything. So
as I said, this is a loaded question. Because it really is a really deep question to think about. And I think a lot of times we don't put as much thought into these questions, to be able, because someone may have this question for you. They may say, why did you choose this road of faith? Why did you choose this belief? And I look at it and I always think of like my whole life I'm talking about things. I'm really analytical about things, and
I am too.
I remember when, my brother Gerald, it was like when this is way before I found faith. I was still a knucklehead. I was like still doing bad stuff, and I remember he converted to Islam, and I was just like listening to just some of the stuff that he would say, and I'm like, oh, interesting, but it never resonated with me. It's like, I at this point, I understood that, God was up there. I wasn't really sure where I fit in his grand scheme of things, and with everything that was going on in my life, I didn't really know or believe that, me and him really had a relationship. I had this quote that I used to say that was taken from the movie Hoodlum. Is like, I don't go into God's house, he don't come to mine. Because
that was a lie.
But that's how
yeah,
that's where I was, and that's where I was with life, and then I look at all of the things that, I've been able to overcome by no strength of my own. And I don't say that, to be cliche or, anything like that. But I know without a shadow of a doubt that there's no way that I would be able to be where I am had God not intervened in my life. And even now, and even like following up to the years where, I started following God, and I started, learning more about him, and, just the different like things that I, read and I see, and there's like always this big debate, about, Jesus, and, we go into like the Hebrew names and all these other different things, and people like, the pictures, and people look at pictures of Jesus and like, that's not Jesus. It's like, I know that's not Jesus. That's not Jesus. No one knows if you wasn't there, you don't know what Jesus looks like. If you wasn't there, there's a lot of things that we could debate about, religion. There's a lot of things that we can debate about belief. We could talk about language and, how, letters get changed and names get transliterated and, brought over from this, that, and the next. We could talk about all sorts of things to try to discount, all sorts of things inside of Christianity, inside of, that whole belief system. But one thing that I can say is that I've experienced.
You've experienced, yep.
How there is power in that name.
Oh, yes.
And
it's so
like
true.
A lot of you can debate a lot of things. You can debate a lot of things. But you can't debate experience. You could say it's whatever you want, but
the experience.
My experience has been this, and that's all I can say. My experience has been this: that there is power. There is power in the name of Jesus. And I'm not saying it, because of the song, because it's like when you see that things are going wrong in your life, when you have situations where, like, had it not been for God's intervention, and you're like, Jesus, and it's like when you see that you're about to slide off of a cliff over a dam, and you're like, Jesus, and yet still, somehow, some way God intervenes. When, demonic attacks come, and the only thing that can repel them is that name. It's like there comes a point where you understand. And Bishop says it all the time. He's like, when power meets power, the greater power always wins.
It's true, because, oh my gosh, I remember, I don't want to tell, I don't know how much time we have, but I remember when we was on vacation in what was it, Pennsylvania?
We was in the Poconos.
Yes, and it was
in the winter,
in February, and like, the hills. And we almost, oh gosh, we didn't have, our kids were like young. Elisha and Timothy, they were
young,
very young. And we almost Oh my God.
Yeah.
The road was icy, and the car almost like
It
slide.
reminded me of one of those like bad scenes from a movie.
Yeah,
where the
over a
family
dam.
goes over on vacation and then like
they didn't make it back. And I remember when Timothy was he had to be like maybe
he
around
was young.
2 years
That's
old.
that's the
3
time
years old.
we went to the next day. We was doing the snow tubing and me and him shut out the place.
Yeah.
He was young.
Yeah, he was young, and he was crying in the car saying we're gonna
He's like,
die.
we're gonna die
because he was probably was like 3.
He was young though.
And I thought like
I don't
honestly,
even know. Honestly, I don't even know how that car got to the side of the road.
I don't even understand. I mean, I didn't know whether we're gonna make it or not, but I was believing and trusting, and all I could say is Jesus. And all we could do, the both of us said like Jesus, like Lord Jesus. That's all we could do. That's all we could have said. And that's all we were saying the whole time. Jesus. The car, we couldn't control the car. It was the street was iced over, and the car was going
just sliding
to go over the dam. And that's what I'm saying. Your experience is something, because that we shouldn't be here. That moment alone had to be God. We don't even talk about the situation like that.
No.
That moment alone had to be God, because our car was about to go over the dam, and when we were looking down, you couldn't even see the bottom of that dam. Like, you could not see it. So, and somehow the car just
get to the side of the road and
just stopped.
And it's like situations like that.
Jesus.
It's situations like that where it's like, people can debate, whatever they want. I understand. Like, I wasn't here, 2,000 years ago. I wasn't there, when he got nailed. But what I do know is
there is a God.
What I do know is this, that when that name is mentioned, situations have to change.
It's true.
When that name is mentioned, demons have to take flight.
Things have to
power
change.
When that name is mentioned. When that name Jesus is mentioned, situations have to change.
And there's more than one, because I'm like, there's tons and tons of time we were in situation, and I'm like, sometimes I feel like I can't even pray. I just keep calling Jesus. And then things just turn around. It's like he just show up. And I don't know. How do we help someone who is I don't know if you have a next question or what the next
That was the question. It's like, what would you say to someone who's having difficulty in their faith walk, or if they're questioning, or if they don't know what to do or how to make it, or
I can only I could have only encouraged that person from my experience with Jesus, and that's the only way I could share my story, share my experience, and just be like, if it had not been that vacation day,
vacation could have been a funeral for 4 very easily.
Family of 4 went on vacation, never came back, and this was how many years ago? So, and also in our own personal life, there's times where we probably shouldn't be married right now, because sometimes we have to only Jesus. There's times, even the jobs that we have, we shouldn't have them. It's only Jesus. Having a house, having cars, everything in our life, it's only Jesus.
And I think a lot of people discount, the importance of, having that relationship with God, and having that relationship and really understanding who it is that they serve. And with that piece, if you are struggling in your faith, if you're wondering, how you can make it, you know, I would encourage you in the fact that, you know, the God that we serve never stops loving you.
Never stop.
And I think that's important to know, you know, because sometimes we will go through these spells where, and people, we're like roller coasters. We're inconsistent as could be. That's the only consistent thing about us, is the fact that we're inconsistent. Some days we're up, some days we're down. Sometimes we're feeling like we can make it. Sometimes we're feeling like the end of the world is coming. You know, it's like, you know, so it's like we have to understand really the God that we serve, and the fact that his love for us is we can't even imagine how much he loves us. Like I can't even put words to it to make you understand the amount of love that God has for you. And it doesn't matter the situation that you're in. You know, sometimes we try to put hierarchy on sin, and hierarchy on, you know, the things that we do and the things that happen. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what you have done. God loves you so much.
Just calling his name. There's power.
Sometimes you just have to take a moment and just have a conversation with the person that loves you.
Yeah. Yep. Wow.
And the more conversation you have, the more you'll understand, you know, how much he's there for you and how much he wants you to be better than where you are.
Yeah. And
You
it's
know,
never too late. So you may be like,
there's never a time limit
oh,
for
I'm
that.
such a bad person.
There's never
like,
a time
there's
limit for that.
God can't save me. Like, look at all the things that I've done. You know, don't make that decision for God.
Yeah, and I like that one. Don't make that decision for God. You can try to make that decision for you, but don't make that decision for God. Let God let you know what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Don't. I like that one. I need to put that in the caption. Don't make that decision for God.
Yeah.
But that was amazing.
Yes.
So why Jesus? Why not Jesus should really be the question. Why not?
Why not? Jesus?
What do you have to lose? It's all gain, and that's really what it is. It's all gain. It's like I'll end on this note, because this is an important one right here, and I'll really end here. I remember when I heard this question twice too. My sister asked me this, and then another individual, Jeff Gray, the professor, Jeff Gray, asked me the same question. My sister said to me one time, she's like, I got a question for you. She's like, I want you to tell me the truth. She said, if you got to the end of your life and you found out that God wasn't real, how would you feel? Would you still, serve him? And I said to her, I was like, believe it or not, I wouldn't feel any way about it. I wouldn't be upset at all. I'm like, because I would rather go through my life believing that God is real than go through my life not believing God is real and get to the end. Let me put it in a better way. I'd rather, live my whole life knowing that God is real, get to the end and find out he's not, than live my life not thinking he's real and get to the end and find out he is.
Yeah.
That's not a price I'm willing to pay.
I heard a preaching about that before, something like that.
That's not a price I'm willing to pay. Because it cost me nothing for the joy that I'm getting.
Yep. And what I was gonna say is that, like, I've had so many experiences with God where I just the feeling alone.
There's no way. There's nothing
no
that can convince me.
There's not
there's
a God.
Nothing that can convince me.
There's not a God.
There is just too much experience between him, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. There's just too
Trinity.
much. There's just too much. There's too much experience for there not to be him waiting at the end.
And at the end of it, it becomes your experience.
Yeah.
It's a personal experience that you have to experience in order to be able to talk like how we're talking.
That's true.
So if we're talking, we're not trying to push anything on anybody, but this is our experience, that we experienced God for himself in different ways in our life. in
It's
different
true.
situation where I could sit and said, no one could come and tell me
You can
that
try, but,
there is not a God, because I've experienced him
Yes.
for myself when there was no other way and no one else could have done it. No one else could have helped but God.
But God. Yeah, and that's really what it all boils down to.
But God.
We gonna end, because we could. I don't know about you, but I could go on with this topic for a while. So for the viewers' pleasure, we are going to wrap it right
Yes.
here. Remember, death and
Death and
life
life
are in the power of the tongue.
So make sure you speak life.
life. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. We love y'all. Don't forget to check out the website, threeroadscollide.com. Stay
And
on
get your
top of
book.
everything that we're doing. Yes, if you
You
haven't
get it on
gotten
Amazon, you can get it from us.
the book, get
When Three
the
Roads
book,
Collide.
When Three Roads Collide. Go and check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. We love y'all. Have an amazing week, and we will see you soon.
All right. Peace and blessings.
Blessings.